Ursula Rush and Christina Gonzalez for the department. Ready.
Scott Stilson, attorney for Aaron Poston. He is present, as am I, and we announce ready.
Lauren Allen, attorney for the respondent mother, Amber Herring. She just texted me, Judge. She doesn't have the right link, so I'm trying to get her on here. So until she joins, I'll announce not ready.
This hearing was set at 2:30, so we'll go ahead and proceed, and hopefully she'll be with us by the time we get through this. Preliminary information.
Sarah Ladd for the child. I'm ready.
Thank you.
Department calls Aaron Poston. Mr. Poston, you're the father of Lydia, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And we've had multiple hearings, and if I remember correctly, you've said that Lydia is not of Indian heritage where she would qualify under the Indian Child Welfare Act, correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to ask you, are you doing okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you on any kind of medications that we need to know about that may affect your answers or that may require you to take a break at some point?
No, ma'am. Just antibiotics.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you're on, and if it were diuretics and you needed to take a break, you would just tell us, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when did you go, when were you diagnosed with, I just call it flesh-eating bacteria. I'm sure there's a real name for it, but can we just call it that?
Well, we can refer to it as that. Yes, ma'am. And I can't say for certain at which point it was diagnosed in a medical setting. However, it was recognized on, I believe, let me see calendar real quick here. Oh, it was recognized on the 15th, at which point I was care flighted to Plano Presbyterian.
Okay, you said on May 15th?
14th.
Okay, May 14th. Your Honor, could Ms. Herring mute herself? I think she's the one who's cutting.
Sorry, I don't know how to do it. You guys just mute and stop.
It appears on my end that she has muted, that we may have lost her
Yes, ma'am.
picture. Nope, there she is. Okay, thank you, Ms. Herring.
Okay. So it was recognized, I take it, in Wichita Falls on May 14th?
No, ma'am. It was actually a photo that was sent to an orthopedic surgeon in Plano, and he is the one who recognized it based on my symptoms. However, they hadn't identified it at United Regional.
I did that in a bad way. Where were you on May 14th when it was recognized is what I meant?
United Regional, I believe.
Okay. So you were in Wichita?
I believe, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Where does Amber Herring live?
She stays at an apartment in town that I rent in Wichita Falls.
Has she been staying with her boyfriend on your property at any point in the last 2 months?
No, ma'am.
Has she been staying at any point in the last 2 months on your property overnight?
No, ma'am.
Are you aware that Lydia has says she sees her mother every day or every night?
No, I've not been aware of that.
Do you have any idea why Lydia would be saying that?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
So are you saying that Lydia has not been seeing her mother every day or every night?
If she were seeing her mother, ma'am, she would more likely than not be referring to FaceTime.
Okay, so you're saying, okay, I understand you're in Mr. Stilson's office, but you're a little bit away and
I
keep losing.
apologize.
I'm sorry, Scott.
No. Is that,
It's the sound. Every once in a while, his voice drops.
well, I've got the mic there.
Sure. Okay, so did you say you think it might be because of FaceTime?
Yes, ma'am. That would make a lot of sense to me.
Does Lydia see Miss Herring basically, not necessarily every day, but close to every day on FaceTime?
She saw her very consistently. Yes, we tried to maintain. We had a bedtime routine where I would read books and Amber would sing songs, and we did our absolute utmost to make sure that we retained that, even if it was only with a cell phone.
FaceTime.
Yes,
How many times have you drug tested Miss Herring since the department has been involved with the participation case?
None further since the prior hearing.
Why not?
We've not had visitations.
Did she tell you why?
No, ma'am.
Did you ask her why she wasn't visiting her child?
No, ma'am.
So May 14th, you're at United Regional and you get care flighted to Presbyterian in Plano, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How long had you been sick?
At that point, I would say between 12 and 18 hours.
So you got bad the day before or that morning, right about then, right?
So on Saturday, the 13th, I initially noticed the wound on my hand at approximately 7 or 7:30 p.m. I was at Cal West ER by 8:30 to have them look at it. And then I signed out AMA and drove down to United Regional.
Am I correct in thinking that initially you were thinking it might be a snake bite?
Yes, ma'am.
So where was Lydia when you went to Cal West?
She was having a sleepover with her sister, and she was at the home of Janet and William Bush.
Like George Bush?
No, ma'am. Busche.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when did the sleepover end, or when was it supposed to end?
It was supposed to end on Sunday.
Which would have been the 15th, give or take, 14th.
That would have been the 14th, ma'am.
Okay. So what happened when you had to be care flighted?
I can't honestly say other than speculate, quite frankly.
No, I'm sorry. What did you do when you found out you had to be care flighted?
I signed the paperwork, ma'am, and I quite frankly wasn't in a physical or mental state at that point I wasn't on my phone. My blood pressure was falling out.
Okay, let's try it a different way. Did you call the Bushes and say, I'm being care flighted?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Who did you tell?
I did let Amber know because she was the most recent person in my phone, and I asked her to reach out to them.
Okay, now, by most recent person, do you mean like when you call up your contacts and it says recent for texts and phone numbers? Okay.
Correct.
And why was she the most recent? Because of the FaceTiming or what?
In part, but also because I let her know that I was at United Regional.
Okay, and so when you told her that you were being care flighted, did you give her any instructions?
No, ma'am.
Did you ask her to call the Bushes?
Yes.
Did you tell her anything else?
No, ma'am. I didn't really know anything else at that time. I didn't know the severity of my own condition, quite frankly.
Did you tell her where you were going? Where they were taking you to?
I believed I was going to Baylor, ma'am.
Okay.
And I actually was flown to Plano Presbyterian.
And at which point did you decide that someone needed to take care of Lydia?
Well, I knew that Lydia was being taken care of at the Bushes, and we have a long-standing family relationship with them. And in my state of mind, I believed that Lydia was taken care of at that point. If that makes any sense. I didn't explicitly ask anyone, ma'am, but I wasn't in a frame of mind either to attempt to reach out and communicate.
At which point did you become in a frame of mind to reach out and communicate that someone needed to take care of Lydia because you were in the hospital?
I suppose when I let Amber know that I was being care flighted and to be in contact with the Bushes, that would be the closest that I came to it, ma'am. I was rushed immediately into surgery upon arriving in Plano.
Okay, and once again, it was a bad question, and I'm sorry. Do you have was it the next day? Was it the next week? Was it
That Lydia needed to be taken care of, ma'am?
that you realized? You said you've been in a bad mental state, at which point you're like, I'm coming out of whatever and I can think, and oh my God, someone's got to take care of Lydia. When is that?
I quite frankly trusted that the Bushes would continue to do so, especially if made aware of the fact that I had been care flighted and was unable to take Lydia back into my custody.
At which point did you decide Matthew Whitehead was a good choice?
I never explicitly spoke with Mr. Whitehead about it, but it made sense that
And what, wait a minute, why did it make sense that Mr. Whitehead was a good choice?
I didn't say that, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I thought you just said you never explicitly spoke to Mr. Whitehead, but it seemed like a good choice.
I said that it made sense, ma'am. Mr. Whitehead, I helped him logistically and kind of marketing wise in the starting of a garage door repair company. And he's a trustworthy.
Okay, wait a minute. When did you logistically work with him on starting his, you said garage door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, garage door company
April.
of this year.
Yes, ma'am.
And you think he's trustworthy?
Yes, ma'am. He's proven to me at least that he has a strong work ethic and has only shown me to be an honest individual.
Okay, and you've known him for about 4 to 6 weeks when, well, about, yeah, 4 to 6 weeks when this happened.
That's
Did
correct.
you- Okay, do you remember a conversation with Ms. Gonzalez when she discussed specifically with you that Mr. Whitehead was involved, was present when Amber Herring was arrested in February of 2023 for methamphetamines again?
I don't believe that's an accurate statement, ma'am.
I'm asking you, do you remember you and Christine Gonzalez talking about that?
Do you know when it was, ma'am?
It would have been after the February hearing.
I don't believe I knew who Mr. Whitehead was at that time,
On
ma'am.
May 5th, do you remember Christine making an unannounced home visit?
Yes, I do.
And do you remember saying you knew Whitehead and he was a cousin of Amber's?
Yes,
And do you remember at that time her telling you that Mr. Whitehead had been in the car and the driver when Amber was arrested in February for methamphetamine possession again?
Objection hearsay as to what the caseworker or investigator would have told Mr. Poston.
I'm asking if he remembers that.
But
I'm
you're
gonna I'm going to overrule that.
Okay. Do you remember that, Mr. Poston?
I don't recall that being an explicit matter. No, ma'am.
Okay, then what do you recall Christina telling you in on May 5th at the unannounced home visit about Mr. Whitehead?
Okay, objection again as to hearsay, Judge. She's asking my client what another individual told him.
Which goes to his state of mind, Your Honor.
I'm going to overrule that.
So what do you recall Ms. Gonzalez telling you on May 5th at the unannounced home visit about Matthew Whitehead?
I recall her saying that she had seen the white car at the apartment previously.
Yeah. What else?
That's realistically the extent of it, ma'am. She asked me why the vehicle was there, and it was because Mr. Whitehead explained to me that he was behind on payments and just wanted somewhere to put it for a period of time.
And were you aware from your conversation with Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Herring, or your own research before you got into business with Mr. Whitehead that he's currently on probation as of January 2023 for possession of a controlled substance, to wit, methamphetamine, third-degree felony?
I was not initially aware when I first met him, but I became aware. Yes, ma'am.
When did you become aware?
I'm not certain.
Before or after you decided he was a trustworthy individual with whom it made good sense to leave your child?
Ma'am, I'm not characterizing him in that state.
Objection, non-responsive.
Pardon. Did I know before or after I made that decision, ma'am? Is that what you're asking me?
Exactly what I'm asking you.
I was made aware of it before I made this decision. However, I believed that Lydia was left in the care of the Bushes and that he was transporting her to and from school.
And why did you believe that Lydia was left in care of the Bushes?
Nothing, there was nothing to lead me to believe otherwise, ma'am.
Did you ask the Bushes?
No, ma'am, but I just believed that with as much support as they've given our family through the years, that I full-heartedly believed that they were taking care of her.
Did you ask Lydia?
No, ma'am, I had no means of contacting her.
Did you ask Amber?
No, ma'am.
Did you ask Mr. Whitehead?
No, I assumed it was just functioning.
I'm sorry, you cut out it. You assumed and then I lost the word.
I assumed it was functioning for Mr. Whitehead to transport her to and from school from the Bushes.
knowing that Mr. Whitehead was on possession probation? You thought that was a functional thing for him to transport your daughter? Is that right?
Ma'am, I've never seen anything to lead me to believe that he's under the influence of drugs or in possession of drugs at any time, nor would I believe that he poses an immediate threat to my daughter or would expose her to anything based on my experience with the individual.
Your experience of 4 to 6 weeks before he was transporting your daughter, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so have you seen the petition that your attorney filed for custody this afternoon?
If you haven't, you can tell them that.
I'm not certain.
Okay. Are you aware that one's been filed?
Yes, I am aware that one's been filed.
And are you aware that it does not list an address for Ms. Herring to be served?
No, I was not aware of that.
Are you also, oh, let's back up. When you believed the Bushes were taking care, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back further than that. Did you ever call the Bushes to tell them you were in the hospital?
No, ma'am.
How do you think the Bushes learned you were in the hospital, if they did?
From Amber.
Okay. And why would you think Amber told them?
Well, Amber's middle daughter, ma'am, resides with the Bushes. That was her placement. And so is Lydia's half sister.
Why would you think? But why would you think Amber would tell the Bushes that Aaron is in the hospital in the Metroplex?
Because I'd asked her to explicitly.
And when did Amber explicitly tell you, I've done that?
I don't believe I ever asked for confirmation, ma'am.
I understand you may never have asked, but did she ever volunteer?
Not to my knowledge. I assumed it had been taken care of.
Okay, sir, it would have to be in your knowledge. Did she ever explicitly say to you, I called the Bushes? Oh, we lost her. Or did?
The time is 2:52 and Miss Herring has lost her Zoom link. Please continue.
Thank you. So, I mean, my question was, did she ever voluntarily explicitly say to you, I've told the Bushes that you're in the hospital and they need to take care of Lydia?
I can't honestly say, ma'am, because
Okay.
at that time I would have been heavily sedated still. I had surgery every other day.
When did you stop being heavily sedated?
We pull the calendar, Scott.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, you need your calendar? Sure.
Yes, ma'am, to ballpark it.
I'm fine.
I would say that until I was able to really regain consciousness and be with it, not until the 18th, if I'm honest.
March 18th. I'm sorry, May 18th.
May 18th, yes, ma'am.
Give or take a little bit, right?
17th or the 18th, ma'am, if I was going to call it.
That's okay. And so how many times approximately between March 14th, when you were care flighted, and March 18th, give or take, when you became, let's just say, coherent? Is that a fair word?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
How many times you might have called Ms. Herring?
I do not know.
Did you? I'm not asking you to do it now, so don't think I am. But have you ever looked at your phone to see how many times you called her in that time period, or she called you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And on May 18th, did you at that point call the Bushes?
No, ma'am, because I'd already been contacted by Christina Gonzalez.
Do you recall how many times you had been contacted by Ms. Gonzalez between, no, I'm gonna do this differently, I apologize. Do you recall being contacted by Ms. Gonzalez between May 14th and May 18th?
Yes.
Do you recall about when that would have been?
I received a text message from Miss Gonzalez at 1:56 on, I believe that would have been the 16th.
Okay. Okay, you're looking at a note. Did you make notes before this?
Of this correspondence? Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you respond to her on May 16th, give or take?
No, ma'am, I'd had surgery that morning.
Okay. Were you out of it?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you were medicated and had surgery and stuff, right?
Yes, ma'am. I've been anesthetized and there were hours afterwards where, yes, ma'am, I was asleep.
Since you apparently did look at your phone to make notes about that 1:56, May 16th, 2023 text message, did you notice any messages after that that you may have made to Amber?
No,
Okay. Do you think you may have texted Amber or Mr. Whitehead? Yeah, Whitehead after that point.
I believe I called them.
Okay. And do you recall, would it have been the 16th or would it have been some other time?
It would have been the 16th. I believe I called Mr. Whitehead.
Do you remember how long after your 1:56 p.m. text from Christina that you called Mr. Whitehead?
No, ma'am. And I was unaware of the text from Christina until far later in the day.
So you think, well,
I'm able to see the timestamp. That's
oh,
all.
no, that's okay. I assume then that you would have called him before you got the text message, or you would have seen the text message, right?
You
I
assume
mean, is your phone, let's back up. Is your phone like mine? If you get a text message and you don't look at it, it tells you you've got a text message.
that's correct.
Okay. So when you talk to Matt on May 16th, since you don't have a memory specifically of responding to Christina, was the phone call to Matt before you got the text from Christina, or was it after?
Chronologically, it would have been after, ma'am, but I don't believe I actually saw the text message until I had
So
spoken with Mr. Whitehead.
after about 2 p.m. on May 16th, when you talked to Matt Whitehead, what did you tell him?
I was letting them know that I was okay from surgery and asked if he would relay it to Amber as well. I was unaware that anything was occurring.
And did you talk to Mr. Whitehead about Lydia?
No, ma'am. He informed me of the removal process having begun.
Uh,
It wasn't until much later in the afternoon than 2 o'clock, ma'am, that I spoke with Mr. Whitehead.
I just said after 2 o'clock.
Okay, making sure.
Yeah, just sometime after 2.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you spoke to Mr. Whitehead, was that the first time you'd spoken to him since you'd been care flighted?
No,
Okay, when was the first time you spoke to him after you got care flighted? Not while you're at United Regional. Miss Herring is back, Your Honor.
Yes,
It's 2:58 according to mine. Is it yours?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when was the first time after you got care flighted that you spoke to Mr. Whitehead?
I believe it would have been probably in the very early hours of Monday, the 15th, maybe. Just
And what did you tell
midnight.
him? What did
Okay,
you tell
let's
him?
wait just a moment. Y'all are talking over each other. Mr. Herring and Mr. Poston, I need you to let Ms. Rush finish. Ms. Rush, I need you to let Mr. Poston answer.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So
Thank you.
on May 15th, what did you tell Mr. Whitehead?
That I'd been flown to Plano and had surgery and that I was alive. Quite frankly, at that
What did
point,
you tell him about Lydia? I'm sorry.
we didn't speak about Lydia at that time, ma'am.
You didn't ask him if he was arranging transportation for Lydia?
No, ma'am,
Why did you call Mr. Whitehead?
because I knew that he would be able to relay the message to Amber.
Had you attempted to call Ms. Herring and couldn't reach her?
I believe so.
Are you aware Ms. Herring has been arrested again since the removal?
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that.
Did you not have any concerns that let me back up. Do you believe Mr. Whitehead is related to Ms. Herring, or is he in a relationship with her?
He was introduced to me as her cousin.
Did you ever ask him?
No, ma'am, I've not.
I'm sorry, say that again.
No, ma'am, I have not.
Why not?
I didn't necessarily see any reason to doubt it, ma'am.
Did you think maybe they could be in a romantic relationship?
No, not really.
You asked Mr. Whitehead about his drinking and or substance abuse issues.
No, not explicitly, but I've never seen anything that would alarm me.
Did you implicitly ask him?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so in the 4 to 6 weeks that you were in business with him before you left your child, how often did you see him?
Every 3 or 4 days or so to check in on how things are going.
On the business?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, on May 15th, when you called Mr. Whitehead, did you think to call the Bushes to see how your daughter was doing?
No, ma'am, but I was not really with it, quite frankly.
But you were quite frankly with it enough to call Mr. Whitehead to get him to relay a message to Ms. Herring, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But you were not with it enough to call the Bushes to see how your daughter was and whether or not they'd be able to keep her forever, how long you needed to be in the hospital. Is that correct?
Objection asked and answered.
I'm going to overrule that.
Is that correct?
Could you restate the question, ma'am?
I can try. How's that sound? On May 15th, you were not with it enough to call the Bushes to check on your daughter, but you were with it enough to call Mr. Whitehead to relay a message to Amber, correct?
That's correct, but I was also
Right.
with enough, ma'am, not to call them at 1 a.m.
Wait a minute, you called Mr. Whitehead at 1 a.m.
Yes, I'd been care flighted there, ma'am, on the 14th. They rushed me in for emergency surgery. And by the time I woke up, it was at least midnight, if not 1 a.m.
Okay, so after 1 a.m, when it's a more decent hour of the day, and after you had been coherent enough to call Mr. Whitehead, at that point, did you think to call the Bushes to see how your daughter was doing?
Objection asked and answered.
I don't think that's been asked. I'm going to overrule that.
No, ma'am, I believed that she was being
Okay.
taken care of and that I'd left explicit enough requests.
To Amber.
Yes,
Okay, so are you aware of why Amber got arrested the end of May?
at the end of May, ma'am,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, last week.
revocation of bail bonds.
You're aware she picked up some new drug charges?
No,
Okay. Who paid her bail out? Do you know?
I paid her bail out after speaking with the previous bail company, but there's nothing that has indicated to me that there are any new charges.
Are you aware? Okay. So you paid her bail to bail her out about March 27th, May 27th, give or take a little bit. Does that sound about right?
That would be correct.
Do you know where Mr. Whitehead lives?
No, I don't.
Okay. Other than Mr. Whitehead, and at least one time when you called Miss Herring, who else did you call to let them know about you being in the hospital and ask how your daughter was doing?
I informed my trustee at the bank that I was in critical condition and attempted to relay rather crudely what I would like done if I passed away. Other than that, ma'am, pardon me?
I said, sure, I understand.
Oh, okay. Other than that, I reached out to immediate family, but that wasn't until days later.
When did you call your trustee?
I would have called her either the day that the bite occurred or in the morning. So that would have either been the 13th or the 14th.
Oh, when you thought it was a bite. Yeah. I've
Yes,
got it.
ma'am.
And when did you call family members? Would that have been after the removal?
Yes,
Okay. I understand that you would like Ms. Gardner to be placement if we're maintained as TMC, is that correct?
yes, ma'am.
And she's the daycare director,
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
right? Okay. Do you think the child should go to Amber?
Not at this time, ma'am.
Are you aware of Amber going into rehab?
Yes, ma'am. She went.
Did she tell you that?
Yes.
She tell you what rehab?
I don't recall.
Was it Nexus by any chance? If it wasn't, that's fine.
I'm not sure, ma'am.
She tell you whether she successfully completed it?
She informed me that her grandmother had gotten very sick and that she had left after being there around a week. And her grandmother recently passed away.
Okay. Did she tell you when she left after about a week?
I'm not sure, ma'am.
Was it in May?
Not to my knowledge. I believe it was sooner than that.
Okay. Did she tell you that it was in April?
Ma'am, I don't recall when it occurred exactly.
Did she tell you when's the last time she's been doing drugs?
No, ma'am.
So why don't you think Lydia should go to her?
Given the standing court order that was in place previously, I, at that point, don't understand why Lydia would necessarily go directly with her. It's in direct violation. I wanted to maintain Lydia's safety.
I'm not asking about court orders. I'm just asking your opinion. Okay. So why do you think Lydia should not go to Amber?
In my opinion, because it would be the direct violation of the court order, ma'am, and it jeopardizes my daughter's safety and places her into the system as we're currently.
If there were no court order, that's what I'm asking you. Do you believe that without a court order, placing Lydia with Miss Herring would endanger Lydia?
I do not believe it would directly endanger Lydia. No, ma'am.
Why not? Or yeah, why not?
I've not seen anything to indicate substance abuse on Amber's part.
So are you concerned at all that she keeps racking up charges for possession of meth?
Ma'am, I don't believe there was a new charge. While the behavior is concerning in the past, I've not seen anything to indicate that it's proceeded any further than February.
So basically her Archer County charge or her possession, the last possession charge I show in Wichita was February the 13th, 2023. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes,
Okay. So that'd be about 2.5 months. Does that sound about right?
looking at closer to 3.5.
February to March, March to April, April to May. Yep, 3.5. I'm sorry, I miscounted. So that's about 3.5 months, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that that's enough to decide that, and the fact that she did not complete rehab, and as far as you know, she's not gone back, right?
That's correct.
So you think that's enough for you to not have any concerns about her substance abuse issues?
It's not enough to not have any concerns whatsoever. However, in the absence of anything to indicate ongoing substance abuse, particularly as she lost her grandmother and seeing her grief that, I mean, no, ma'am. I don't necessarily see anything that's poking or prodding at me.
Does it not?
Immediate usage.
Ms. Rush, please let them finish.
That's why I kept going. Does it not concern you that since the last court hearing, she's not taken a single drug test so she could visit her kid?
I was not aware of that.
You just told me when I asked you when was the last time you drug tested her. You said not since. I'm talking about the drug test that you have to do in order for her to see the child, right?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, ma'am. I believed you were referring to like CPS drug tests though. But
No, sir. You testified that since the last court hearing we had on the participation case, she's not visited her child in person and she's not taken a drug test. Now, does that not concern you that she's not drug testing so she can visit her kid?
it's concerning. However, there's a lot that's been going on, ma'am.
Okay, pass the witness.
Mr. Poston, just to basically recap the timeline. So around May 13th, you get bitten by what you believe to be a snake, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the time, Lydia was with Janet and William Bush, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Lydia has had a relationship with Janet and William correct?
Yes, sir, her whole life.
Okay. And these seem like reputable, trustworthy people. You've never had any issues with the Bushes, have you?
That's correct.
Okay. You get bitten by a snake. You go to Cal West, you end up going to United Regional. And then the next day you get care flighted to Plano. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say that does your physical condition, your medical condition deteriorate rather rapidly during this time?
Yes, sir, very rapidly over probably an 8-hour period.
Is it fair to say most people don't go get care flighted to a place unless they're experiencing some sort of medical emergency?
Yes, sir.
And you were experiencing medical emergency. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If you had been completely fine, or if you'd not had what appears to have been some sort of flesh-eating bacteria, would you have done things differently?
Yes, sir. I believe that I was going to be out of United Regional to pick her up Sunday morning.
And instead, again, you had a medical emergency and the situation deteriorates, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so your ability to converse with people is limited during this time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Both in your ability to physically call people as well as the fact that you're on medication and surgeries during this period.
Yes, sir.
Did you believe at any point that you may not survive this?
Yes, sir, for probably the first 36 or 48 hours once I realized the severity of the condition.
And so you talk to Amber, and it's your understanding that Lydia is still with the Bushes, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever authorize Amber to pick Lydia up from the Bushes?
No.
Okay. In fact, that would be as you had mentioned, a direct violation of the court order, correct? You
Yes,
agree
sir.
with me on that? Okay. And you've previously testified that one of the reasons you believe Amber would not be appropriate today is because that would be a violation of the current court orders, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your contact with Mr. Whitehead, I just want to talk about that real briefly. It's your understanding, of course, he's on probation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You personally, during the time that you've known him, haven't seen any issues that would cause you to believe that he posed any sort of immediate risk to Lydia in just driving her from what you believe the Bushes to daycare. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. You weren't expecting Mr. Whitehead to care for your child 24/7 or anything, were you?
No, sir.
Okay. So basically sort of taxing her from, again, what you believe to be the Bushes to the daycare. Is
Yes,
that right?
sir.
Okay. And again, this is happening in the middle of a medical emergency. You're still receiving surgeries during this time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So if you are completely healthy, you probably would have chosen a different course of action. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At least with respect to having Lydia, Lydia's situation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you were later informed at that point that Lydia, in fact, had been taken by the department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When did you get out of the hospital?
Pull that calendar back up real quick.
Sure.
I got out of the hospital on the 26th.
So from until probably about the 13th or 14th to the 26th, you were not at your house, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As we sit here today on May 31st, are you back at home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any medical after effects or medications that you have to take that will compromise your ability to take care of Lydia today?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you condone if Amber did take Lydia in violation of the court order? Is that something that you condone?
No, sir. Not in violation of the order. No.
Okay. But this was, again, an emergency medical situation, and you, in a different city, were trying to make the best you could while coming in and out of medication and surgeries, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you fully capable of taking care of Lydia today?
Absolutely.
You're aware, of course, of the court orders,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And would you continue to follow those court orders?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With respect to drug testing and whatnot, if the department if the court believes that Amber still poses a threat to Lydia, you would continue to follow the court orders, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you understand, of course, that for whatever reason, she has not completed a rehabilitation. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whether that was understandable for an understandable reason or not, that is something that she has not done, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you would like to see her do that? Yes.
Yes, sir.
If before she could do any sort of physical visits with Lydia, you would continue to have her drug tested, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the reason she hasn't drug tested is that she has not been physically around Lydia, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You have filed you're not a lawyer, are you?
No, sir.
Okay. So the counter petition that was filed today, whether or not we put someone's address in, you had no hand in that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With respect to the counter petition, again, we're not asking for temporary orders anything today. I'm just acknowledging that it was filed. At some point, you would like to have supervised visitation of Lydia, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you, and I don't want to get too far into it, but you do believe that continued drug testing is important, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because whether Amber, though you have no reason to believe Amber is not currently sober, her continued sobriety and demonstrating that would be in Lydia's best interest, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The factors under 262-201, there's no substantial risk of any sort of continuing danger if Lydia is returned home to you, is there?
No.
Okay. You would continue to follow the court orders that are currently in place, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as of at least the 26th, you have the ability to physically care for Lydia and meet all of her needs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's the witness.
Miss Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Poston, has Amber had any unauthorized visitation with Lydia to date?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so she hasn't been over there when she's not supposed to at your house.
No, ma'am.
And when the unannounced visit was made on the 5th, with the caseworker, was Amber present at your house?
No, ma'am.
And if the department told you that going forward you weren't to have Mr. Whitehead around Lydia, would you have any problem with complying with that?
No, I would not have any issue complying with that.
Even if they said he can't even be around when I'm around, that would be fine with you, correct?
Yes.
And so you're asking the court to return Lydia to you today.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Miss Ladd?
I have no questions.
Thank you. I believe, Mr. Stilson, do you have an 4 o'clock?
I do, Your Honor, and unfortunately, Wichita County local rules require me to be there 15 minutes earlier. Given it's a contested temporary orders hearing in front of Judge McKnight, I do probably need to be there a few minutes before that as well.
If everyone is in agreement, it seems like this would be a natural time to stop. And that way no one's in the middle. How would y'all like to proceed?
So, will the court do the order extending the ex parte?
Well, we've got a problem. What is that? Didn't we extend this already?
I believe so,
Whenever.
but the court can extend it with agreement of the parties.
No, we're good until June the 13th.
And you'll do the order, Your Honor?
Well, it's already in the order, the previous order extending.
I apologize, Your Honor.
But I would certainly have everyone check my math. As everyone knows, math is not my strong suit.
Well, Mr. Poston will tell you after I figured out from, March or February until May was 2 months that I have issues as well.
I don't think I actually, so because Mr. Poston was never served, I don't know if I don't think I have access to those documents.
I will send them to you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this. I'll send out a Zoom link after we are released. I will set this for a Zoom to pick back up on June the 6th at 3 o'clock. Is
Yes,
that correct?
Thank you.
And I will note for the record that all of the parties are required to, parties only to the Zoom link. Mr. Stilson, Miss Gardner is still in the waiting room. And during this proceeding, there was someone named Dalton who was also in the waiting room. I never let that person in. I didn't know who that was. So
Don't know.
didn't know if that was a witness or someone that y'all had. So at this point in time, I am going to go ahead and maintain the ex parte order that is currently in place. And I will see everyone back on June the 6th at 3 p.m. by Zoom. Anything else we
Yes,
need to
ma'am.
take up, Ms. Rush?
Not on YouTube. If we could go off YouTube for a minute.
Anything, Mr. Stilson, that we're still on YouTube that we need to take up at this moment?
No, Your Honor.
Miss Allen,
No, Your Honor.
Miss Ladd?
No, Your Honor.
And if you'll give me one moment, I will sign us off of YouTube.